Paula,
Hi.
happy 2025.
Happy 2025. Yes.
How's business?
Well, it is going. It is one of those things where I have a workshop that I'm doing this week talking about the art of communication. And, I believe everything begins and ends with communication. So it's actually kind of cool to be starting off the year with what I call my premier workshop. So that is a good thing. I've had a couple of call for speaker applications accepted, which is cool. Um, but yeah, I need to get focused on what I need to do for the beginning and the full year.
You totally folded the focus word in there because we were talking earlier about what our word is for 2025.
Yeah.
But we have decided that we're going to just pop on here uh, pretty regularly. And our goal for 2025 is to be all in on our business, all in on life, all in on all the things that light us up. And
Yes.
so we want to share some of that journey with you and see how our year opens up for us and hopefully you too.
Absolutely.
So I've been on kind of a 2 month hiatus, and I'll be transparent. I don't mind being transparent that it was my therapist required it of me. Because I've been
Love
really
it.
burnt out and really kind of confused about my direction lately, and not so much about the work I want to do, but just sort of getting consistent about it after sort of a crazy few years. So my two words are peace, which is keeping sort of my center, which is really important to me.
Yep.
And the other one is consistency, which is to get back to sort of a structure that works for me where I feel like I'm making consistent progress, doing consistent work, getting more organized in my business again in 2025. And so I'm actually quite excited that I'm starting to feel a little bit of my mojo coming back. What about you?
Love it. And I love the fact that one of your words is peace, because I have three words that I'm just living by right now, which is I want joy, peace, and happiness surrounding me. So I love the fact that peace is one of your words for the year. But my word for the year is focus. It is all about um, really, honing in, not only my business but also my personal life. And I think that just comes from, when you're good at things, you tend to do a lot of things and overload yourself. And I have overloaded myself these last few years for multiple reasons. None of it's necessarily bad. It's just it's about making the right choices at the right time. And so for me, focus is really about getting very in tune with what I want to do, why I want to do it, and getting people to understand what I do. And, my coach actually said to me last year, I need to do a better job. I'm leading everybody else and I'm talking about leadership development, which is great, but I better do a better job at leading myself. And so I laughed at that because I get it, right? Sometimes, no matter what you're doing, we can be really good at coaching and helping others. I mean, really, really good at it. But then you look inward and recognize the reality. Is there some things that you could be doing better? And so for me, focus is getting laser focused on my time, who I spend my time with, what I spend my time on, um, and making sure that what I am doing is really aligned to the goals that I'm setting. But also going back to the other three words that I want to live by, which is joy, peace, and happiness. So yeah, my word for 2025 is definitely focus.
Focus is a good one. I think that was a lot of my issue in the last couple of years was I just didn't feel like I had a focus.
Yeah.
And, coming out of the pandemic and some other things, my life has changed a lot. And trying to figure out, because I've spent most of my career as a musician, as a coach, as a performer, you know, building community, doing all these things, which I
Mhm.
loved and I loved giving. But I wanted to make a bit of a pivot, and it's been an interesting journey to figure out what that pivot looks like. And what's funny is as I've been taking this break, I've come back to basically doing the same thing I was doing before, except not with music. So it's my mantra, my tagline for my business, A Place to Shine Music, was always believe in what is possible. And somewhere along the line, I stopped believing in what is possible for myself. And that's what I want to get back to, and creating more of like, who is the brand of Cassandra? Who is that has always been,
Yep.
that I'm just amplifying in a different way now, and helping people using a lot of the same heart and soul and caring that I have always done that, and
I
trying
love
to get
that.
it out there. And so that's been at the root of it. And with your focus on communication, my focus, as I realize more and more, what I end up talking about is that your voice matters, that your impact, how you impact people matters, and how you show
Mhm.
up in a room matters, and how you
Yep.
communicate matters. It's the same. We're very much aligned in that space in terms of
Yeah.
in a leadership space, or even in a business, or as an entrepreneur, or in your work or in your life. How you walk in that room affects other people.
Yep.
How you
Yep.
stand up and talk about what you do has
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah.
And that's really where my passion lies, because that's what I've done as a performer and a coach for 30 plus years, is
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I often say, everything begins and ends with communication. It is truly my mantra. It is truly what I believe. And it goes to exactly what you're talking about. It's no matter how we show up. When we walk in a room, yes, we're communicating something. When we're on a Zoom, we're communicating something. When we are just sitting still, we're communicating something. And so whether that is visually, whether it is emotionally, whether it is verbally, we're communicating something. But the key is understanding what you want to communicate to people. And I think so often, especially in the space where I am in talking to leaders and teams and organizations, of understanding why there's a disconnect. Why are there conflicts? Why are we not getting, as productive as we can? Well, I always say it starts with communications, right? It's the expectations, it's all those things. But let's be clear, it's also our personal lives. And so I think we underestimate the power of what is happening to us personally impacts us. And so that to me is another big piece of when you think about our words and what we're doing, is making sure that, and those even listening, right? What's happening in your personal life. Sometimes I always say we try to sugarcoat or what is really happening, and it impacts us in our workspace, whatever that looks like, whatever it looks like. And so part of this again is that everything begins and ends with communication. Is It's okay. Make sure you're talking to somebody. But I also recognize the importance of self-care. And I love the fact that yes, you have taken a couple of months to just decompress. One of the things I did during the holidays is I took 2 weeks, and I had posted about, I just wanted to rest, reflect, and restore. And it was wonderful. I just didn't work, and it was great, and it felt good. But I also decluttered my home, and so there was something powerful about that. And so that wasn't quite resting, but those are the kinds of things where when you start thinking about how to get focused and how to get aligned, there's some things we all have to do. And I think we underestimate the power of what's happening personally. And that can mean anything, whether it's relationships, your health, just whatever. But it's making sure we are attuned to that so that we can make sure we show up as best we can. So when we do walk in that room, that we are communicating the best version of ourselves, because we're being truly authentic about where we are.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the biggest things that I think about a lot, that I've done as a performer, that I've taught, people to do for years and years and years, is,
Yeah.
how do you step on that stage? So if you're a speaker, or you've got to talk to a group, or whatever, how do you step in that room? How do you step on that stage? What are the things that
Right.
you do before you walk in the room to make sure
Right.
that you're centered, that you're peaceful, that
Right.
you are clear, that you're not walking in with a whole bunch of stuff? I did a workshop once, and
Right.
and somebody gave me feedback, and they said, "You know what? It was a How You Show Up Matters workshop." And they said, I didn't realize how just coming in hurried, but coming in
Yes.
hurried to a meeting because I'm blasting from one to another and I'm doing this and then I'm kind of everybody's waiting and there's all these things happening. How that
Yes.
sets the tone for how
Yes.
that whole meeting is going to go, and also just like
Yep.
whether people feel respected, whether people feel calm and ready to work because there's this energy. And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the last few years, is that the preparation, the time that you put in
Yeah.
to like walk in that room, people
Yeah.
just aren't doing it a lot of the time.
Yep. Yep.
Do you find
And it is
that?
because we are hurried. Yeah, it is because we're hurried. We don't take, a pause. We are, back to back to back to back to back. That has become the norm. One of the things that I have found great pleasures many years ago. Um, Somebody scheduled a meeting with me, and it was like 50 minutes or something like that. And I just thought it was odd, not the usual 60. But what they told me, because I asked about it, I said, "Oh, I've never seen that." But what it was is that's that 10 minutes that they get to be able to decompress from whatever meeting they have and preparing themselves for the next meeting, so they're not hurried or rushed. And while I'm not consistent doing that, I love that because it does matter how we show up. It really does. And so often I think we don't even understand what we are, again, portraying by showing up hurried and rushed and frustrated. A lot of times when I speak, I'll even talk about you don't know what happened to that person 5 minutes before they got to that meeting
Hmm.
or started talking to you. I've been in that situation on both sides,
Yeah.
and where you've got a very devastating call, but you still have to show up for something. And so there's something to be said for, again, us taking ownership of how we show up and making sure that what we're communicating goes to the space that we want to, and we're showing up the way we want to. Because too often, unfortunately, we're sending the wrong message. And a lot of times, I know it's not what a lot of us want, but we're not even thinking about it. And one of the things I have really started to tell people is I have another mantra. It's pause, it's breathe, it's think, and it's react. And, I have really taken that on and created that for myself because I used to not think or pause. It was always reaction mode. And what has really forced me to do is starting my day is being very clear about you got to pause before you do anything. You got to breathe. You got to think and then react. And that helps. But a lot of times we just don't even take the time to do that. And so again, we end up showing up rushed and hurried in those moments.
And I think that that goes to your point, and our point that we're talking about of self-care just in general, because, I hate to be redundant, sort of, um, boy, I don't have words today. Everybody says it right, but you got to fill up your own cup first. And
Yes.
so that but there is so much
Yes.
truth in it because I know that, I love giving, right? So I love helping clients. I love helping people, you know, amplify who they are and shine, as I like to
Yep.
call it in the world with my
Yep.
work. And but and I love doing it so much that
Yeah.
when I don't take care of myself is
Yep.
when it starts to feel like a grind, or it starts to feel like I'm giving too much, or it starts to feel like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But when I am taking care of myself, when I'm doing the right things to make
Yeah.
sure that, my own personal mental health and physical health and, spiritual
Yep.
health and all the things that I need uh, are in line. And sometimes that's just literally, a 30-second breathing exercise before
Yeah.
get out of my car and walk in the room
Yep.
somewhere. It can just be
Yep.
something that says, I'm going to recenter, just like if I was going to walk on stage, just
Yep.
if I was going to go do a performance or coach somebody to do that. We all have crazy stuff that happens every
Yeah.
day, hard stuff that happens every day, really great stuff that happens every day that I feel like can affect the energy that we bring to any situation. And
Yep.
to your
Agree.
point about you don't know what somebody is going through, you don't know, how sensitive they might be because something's going on in their life, and you walk in the room and you're like a tornado walking in the room.
Yes.
They're going to be overwhelmed and feel that, and a lot of times I see that in my own work that that's going to shut somebody down. They're not going to feel safe.
Correct. Yep.
And
Yep.
so the responsibility, I think, not only as a leader, but as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, as a, just a human, right? Is to take a little bit more responsibility about our own energy, what
Yeah.
we're doing and how we're showing up. Because it really does make a difference. I've seen it when I stand up in front of, the Woodstock Community Choir and I'm coming in and I'm in a really good place. I can impact 65 people in the room in a really positive way where they walk out feeling really good. But if
Exactly.
I'm not in that place,
Yep.
and I'm feeling, really tired or cranky or everything's getting to me that day, and I don't take the time before I walk in there, I have to take responsibility that I have the potential to impact all these people's day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want to be a light in their day, right? And so that's on me in many ways to decide that and then do the things that I need to do in order to be able to show up that way.
Yep.
I just feel like that piece is something that we I don't know, as leaders, but just as people, we have to focus more on that because sometimes social media, all the things that we're bombarded with, we just don't feel like
Yeah.
we're present.
Correct. Correct. And a lot of that comes back to time. We are in such a, again, hurried state. We don't necessarily take the time. My hope is people have stayed on to watch this entire, video, but the reality is they may have stayed on for a few minutes. And so part of this is, again, we've got to take the time that makes sense for us, but also recognizing just, again, sitting still, being still, pausing. It's okay. It's okay. Again, my word for the year of focus is going to force me to do some things very differently, and that also means that for focus, it means I'm not going to be as responsive as I usually am, because I'm getting real clear about putting my do not disturb notifications on, and so I'm checking my phone maybe 2 or 3 times a day versus every freaking few minutes, or even email. No, you've got to put some boundaries up. So
Yeah.
I don't know what other people's words are, but we would love to hear what your word is for the year, what your focus is. But so much of this is really about being true to who you are, and being honest with yourself, of where you are, because I think so often that's probably part of the problem. I say it a lot. I'm unapologetically Paula, and I've taken years to get to that space of being able to say that out loud, whether I probably showed up that way or not. I say it now, gleefully. I'm unapologetically Paula. And it does not mean that I'm perfect. It just means I know where I am and I'm unapologetic about who I am, but I still need to grow. I still need to grow.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I'm much more, I have a song called Here I Am that I wrote that's all about like this is what you get. This is me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't change, what I've been given,
yep,
in my body, my mind, my all the things that are me or that are all you, unapologetic Paula or confident Cassandra.
yeah.
That can be my thing for 2025.
I like it. I like it.
But we are really excited because we're going to pop on here on a weekly basis. So look for our next video in a couple weeks, and we hope that you'll join us and be all in 2025 as Paula and I sort of share our journeys of moving forward in our lives and also in our professional world.
Love it. Let's go, you all.
All right, all in 2025. Go.
Let's go. Let's go.